So we'll get into some more low-key trades, and all of these low-key trades actually tended to happen in the Metro. So we'll just go through some of the Metro teams. The New York Rangers we'll start with. They left this very late. I don't think that details came out till well after the deadline even passed, but they ended up getting Andrew Copp from Winnipeg, and a sixth for Morgan Barron, a fifth, and two conditional seconds. And the conditions on the seconds are kind of freaky. They're weird to understand, but I'll try my best to make sense of them. So the condition on the second is that one of them turns into a first if the Rangers win 2 rounds in the playoffs and Copp plays 50% of the games.
Wow.
And the other second pick is an option of Winnipeg, so they can either send a 2022 or a 2023 second round. I don't know when this decision has to be made or how the decision is made, but those are the two conditions. So saying all that, what are you thinking?
Well, as I mentioned a bunch of episodes ago when talking about where Giroux would fit best, I had given the Rangers as where Giroux would fit best because I thought that team desperately needed secondary scoring. Andrew Copp, before he got hurt on Winnipeg, had a pretty fantastic year. He was, I think, leading that team in goals for a very long time because guys like Wheeler, Scheifele, Ehlers weren't having very good starts to the season. Yeah. Probably was second in goals. I apologize because Kyle Connor's been unbelievable all year. But if you want to go out and get a left winger that gets you secondary scoring, if his name's not Claude Giroux, I think Andrew Copp is probably the second best player to go do that. Yeah,
and he's versatile too. I think he's probably maybe best as a winger, but I think he's played a bit of center too. On a team like New York, I mean, they're not the deepest of teams, so if you have a guy who can move around up and down your lineup, that's definitely a value. I think they did pay a bit of a high price, potentially a first, second, and a fifth and a prospect. But when you leave your trade till literally 3:01 p.m. on trade deadline day, you're gonna have to pay a little bit higher than you would have hoped. So I like the player. The price was high, but he does kill penalties too. He's tenacious. He's kind of that prototypical. I hate like saying things like this, but he's like your playoff type player. And I think it's a good omen for the Rangers that I kind of wanted the Leafs to be in on him, albeit not for this price. But I did think he would have been a good fit on the Leafs too.
Yeah, at the end of the day, when the New York Rangers go out and get Artemi Panarin on that term for $11 million, you don't want him playing with guys like Ryan Strome and Frank Vatrano. Yeah. To go get him a legitimate second-line winger is something that they needed to do. I think it's something that they owe to him and to their fans if they're going to make a legitimate push. I think this puts him in a pretty good position to have one of the best top sixes in the East. I'm pretty excited to see where New York does. It's a bit of a hot take. I think New York is going to be a first-round exit.
Yeah, I'm not very convinced by them. I don't think they're deep enough. We went off on them in one of our first episodes about how their underlying numbers suggest Shesterkin is God. So yeah, I think they made a move here. They probably think they have a chance. Maybe they do. Maybe we'll be wrong, but nonetheless, a decent trade and a good piece for them. Mm-hmm. Next up, I have Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh traded. This was a really late trade as well. Rakell to the Penguins for a 2022 second, Zach Aston Reese, Dominic Simone, and a goaltending prospect. I think it's Cale Klang. I don't know. I think Rakell has been one of those sort of underrated players throughout his career. He's had a bit of a bounce back year too. He was really bad last year. Had a bounce back year this year. He isn't really a lead at anything, but does everything really well. He's probably in and around like the 50th to 70th percentile, maybe even 80th in some key areas in producing offense. If he plays with Malkin, I can see that working out pretty well. I mean, you put anybody next to Malkin, they're going to be fine, but a guy who's already kind of decent, you never know where they can head with that top six now.
Yeah, I think Rakell is like the prototypical example of a very one-sided, one-way forward. I mean, he is very poorly defensively, but his defensive metrics are among the bottom 10th percentile of all wingers in the league. he can play offense. We have seen that next to Trevor Zegras this year. They've done some pretty magical stuff, especially with that Michigan type goal. That was pretty cool. But if you're Pittsburgh, you look at your team and you realize, wow, after that first line, we have legitimately no forward depth. It falls off a cliff.
True.
Right, their second line is Malkin, Rakell now, and Danton Heinen. And before Rakell, it was Evan Rodriguez. And I know Evan Rodriguez had a pretty good start.
Yeah,
but I mean, you put me beside Sidney Crosby, I'll put up 40 points.
Exactly. Evan Rodriguez isn't having a good season, but he's not who I would want in my top 6. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I think this is another example of the Pittsburgh Penguins, or an organization in general, understanding that their time is running out, understanding that this core, quite possibly with the best player we have ever seen, is running out pretty soon, and they need to go out and try to squeeze every playoff inch out of this team that they can get.
Yeah, I think it's also notable that a couple of their guys are on expiring contracts. Like I'm pretty sure Letang is up after this year,
And Rust.
and Rust. So if one or both potentially leave, that's a big hole to fill. So might as well give it one last run.
Yep, I agree. One of the downsides to this deal is Rickard Rakell is a UFA next year, and I doubt he stays on this team. But I mean, if you're going to go out and try to make a playoff run, I mean, I don't think Rickard Rakell's a poor choice for any means.
Exactly. In terms of the guys going the other way, Zach Aston Reese is probably the biggest name. He's very, very good defensively, in the top 10 percentile in defensive numbers, but he gives 0 offensively. So, I mean, for Anaheim, maybe it's just a solid guy to have for your rebuild. Maybe it was maybe it was the fact that Pittsburgh needed some money going out the door too. But he is very, very good defensively, and pretty much the exact opposite of Max Domi, who was traded to the Carolina Hurricanes for Aiden Hreschuk and Igor Korshkov, noted Leafs legend, that they decided to draft ahead of Alex DeBrincat. Well, I digress. I imagine Max Domi will slot somewhere into their middle 6. He's kind of just, I don't know, he has talent offensively. He's going to a very good defensive team, so maybe you can shelter him and get value out of him. But this felt like a move almost where like everyone around us is making a move, so maybe we should make a move too. I don't know what you thought about it.
I completely agree. This move really doesn't move the needle at all. There weren't even any notable picks that went either way. I mean, when you look at Carolina's top 6, it's guys like Teravainen, Aho, Jarvis, Svechnikov, Trocheck, Jesper Fast. Like, where does Max Domi fit in this top 6?
I'm imagining somewhere on that third line, but Jordan Staal is a great defensive centerman. So do you want Max Domi, who's basically like a black hole on defense, playing next to your best shutdown? I don't know. I don't know where he fits. Rod Brindamore's a great coach, so maybe he has something up his sleeve. But
yeah, I mean, this team is pretty gritty, so he kind of fits the style that Carolina wants to try and play, especially the model that Brindamore tries to play on this team. But I agree with you. I think this trade was simply made because this team had done nothing at the deadline. They want to show their fans that they're committed towards making a move. Yeah. And a lot of people might say that that's not a good argument. A lot of times we see we see GMs overpay at deadlines or make moves that make no sense just to kind of show that they're still in the game.
Yeah, there's something to be said about that. At the end of the day, I don't think these two guys they traded away are going to hurt them in the long term. So if Max Domi comes in and gets a couple goals on your way to an Eastern Conference final or something, it's fine. I'm interested, though, to see in the offseason if he gets a raise on his $5.3 million AAV. Like, I highly doubt it. He's kind of not that good anymore. But that sort of wraps up my bit on the Metro.